we go. Hooray! Hey everybody, I'm Chris Hewitt, and that was episode 1 of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. Please applaud me. I had nothing to do with it. Thank you very much indeed. Will you please welcome people who did have something to do with the making of this show. You please welcome, first of all, executive producer and CEO of the Henson Company, Lisa Henson. Executive producer, Hallie Stanford. The director of the whole shebang, Louis Leterrier. Just making sure we have enough chairs, there's a lot of people. Will you please welcome as Deed, Nathalie Emmanuel. As Kylan, Shazad Latif. And as Naya, Hanna John Cameron. Oh, word. I think this is pretty much everybody who was involved in the making of the show up here on the stage. Lisa, I'm going to start. There's a lot more people. Lisa, I'm going to start with you. What does the Dark Crystal mean for you in terms of legacy and in terms of your father's legacy and keeping this alive?
Well, can you hear me? Yes. So the Dark Crystal was probably, at the time, the biggest puppet production ever done. And, I think we've done something multiple times bigger than that. But it was extremely ambitious when it was done. And Brian Froud is here with Wendy. Where are they? Where are they? A little special shout out to Louise Gold, who's one of the original puppeteers. I know she's it was in development for years before they shot, and I think one of the reasons that the movie is so magical is that they had a kind of a blank check for development, and they were able to R&D the whole world and all the animatronic techniques, and to design and create and just keep working on it until it all looked and felt right to them, and then they made the movie. And nobody gets to do anything like that anymore. But we were the beneficiary of all of that when we made the series, because we were able to, go and mine this incredible, convincing world that they did. And as a company, we always really wanted to go back there, either with a feature film sequel or with the animated television show that Cindy mentioned. But we just knew that there were more stories to tell in that world.
And Hallie, can you talk about where this came from, or the idea for a prequel TV show?
Yes, this is working, yeah. We at Henson always love to go to create worlds that you want to play in and go back to, but we had, just like Lisa said, this amazing world that already existed. I was a child that was raised on Jim Henson, everything Sesame Street through Muppets to Dark Crystal, but Dark Crystal had very personal meaning for me. So to be able to play and go back to Thra was really incredible. But we always ask ourselves, why now? Why this particular story on everything we do? But in this particular case, we thought, wouldn't it be amazing, not only to go back to Thra when it was lush with the Gelfling and just see this magnificent world, but what if we went back to the moment when they discovered the Skeksis secret? And we thought, oh, now that's something to do and tell. So that's why we went back.
Fantastic. And Louis, I believe the Dark Crystal got a grip on you very early in your life.
Yeah, I'm like pretty much everyone in this audience. We watched The Dark Crystal a little too young. Our parents dropped us off at the movie theater because they were fooled by the Jim Henson name. And they were like, no, I'll be back in 2 hours. And we were like, rolled up in a ball. That was my case in French. Imagine this in French, dubbed in French. It's terrifying. So that sort of defined my life. So I wanted to, give this gift to the world again, to a new generation of terrified kids.
Amazing. So you saw this, I think, for the first time when you were about 8.
Yeah.
And which brings us to the cast, all of whom, I imagine, weren't even remotely close to being born when The Dark Crystal came out. When did you first experience The Dark Crystal? And Natalie, let's start with you. And what does it mean to you?
Well, I actually can't really remember. I think I watched it at a friend's house, and I just remember being like, this is awful. I want to call my mum and go home because I'm so scared of the Skeksis. And I didn't know how to say it because, you know, with your friends and you're like, I've got to be cool and not be weirded out by how scared I was and wanted to call my mum. And I just remember being like, oh my God, this is terrifying. But also just, I loved that fantasy genre. And so, you know, having things like Never-Ending Story and Labyrinth and things like that, that was all kind of films that I'd watched and loved, and this just really went into that. And I loved the Gelfling. I thought they were super cute, and the world is so rich and like vast, and you know, I definitely remembered being so taken with it, but obviously horrified by the Skeksis because they're the worst. But yeah, and I just had such kind of like fond memories of it. And when this opportunity came along and they said Dark Crystal, I was like, oh yeah, that's exciting. Straight away I knew that it was going to be epic, and clearly it is. Yeah, again.
And Shazad, actually your character Kylan we haven't seen him yet. Can you talk about that character?
Kylan, he's one of the Gelflings, but he's a sprite, part of the Sprighton or Spritan clan. Plays the flute. He can read and write. He's got a lovely singing voice, as Louis knows. He forced me to sing a song.
That's why we cast Shazad for his singing voice. He's flute playing.
Yep.
Yeah, and he helps light the fires of rebellion with Naya.
I think we actually have a flute here in the audience, if we could just bring it up.
But yeah, and then he's very at one with nature, and he helps the rebellion along the way. You're going to see him in Ep 2.
And Hanna, the same with your character now. We haven't seen her yet. What can you tell us about her?
Well, she's extremely determined. She is a warrior. She's a fighter, and she's incredibly strong. She's a Gelfling as well, and a Sprighton. And she's a tough cookie in the field, and she's a really important part of the rebellion.
She's the sister of their friend of Gurjin. She's quite a looker.
Especially the forehead.
And Louis, it's an amazing cast, an amazing voice cast in this. It would be, I said to you earlier on, it would be easier to list to people who aren't in this show than it would be to list to people who are. But was that something that you wanted from the off, this incredible array of names?
I honestly didn't think we could get people of this wonderful caliber, amazing caliber, and the rest of the cast attached to a 37-year-old legacy project, but a puppet show. So we had Reg and Lily, our casting directors, incredible in the audience. And we the first time I briefed them, I was like, if you have like good actors that are someone interested, and Netflix said, no, let's really go for people that you are fans of, that we are fan of, and that would be fan of the show. So we offered every one of our friends present on this stage, plus the rest of our cast, the part, and they immediately said yes. There was no pass. It was like yes, and sorry, like Taron even didn't open the email. He said, "Dark Crystal, yes," and then you realize the fee, and then we.
That's exactly what happened with me. I remember my agent Madeline called me, and she just said, "Okay, so Dark Crystal." I went, "Oh my, yes, please, yes." Yes.
I had laryngitis and bronchitis simultaneously when the audition for that came in, and my lovely agent here was like, so we just needed tape, and I was like, yeah, but I've got no voice. It was like that for about 3 weeks, and I thought, I was like terrified it was going to go away, and then luckily it didn't.
Yeah, you could just see me. No, it was like, it's sort of a vibe. The thing with our process is really, they are the second part, but such an important part of a character. And I'd love to, if it's okay with you, thank the puppeteers who are, all lined up over there. Like you guys are. Everyone except one, Neil, are amazing people. Neil plays Rihanna. No, so it's a two-hander. They start the performance, they do really the acting, I direct them, then I have to direct again and then find a character with you guys, and then in a dark room in Soho, we have to create the magic. So I had to be with friends. That's the idea. We joked, we tried stuff, we played, we sang a lot. There was a lot of singing.
I really enjoyed that part.
You like that part, right?
Yeah.
You like your voice?
I know. I was actually pleasantly surprised.
I know. Auto tune. No, that's not true. It is not true.
I mean, I probably need to. Let's be honest.
That's not true. No, she's an amazing singer, and she.
It's not true.
Somebody is an amazing singer, and no, it was incredible, and we did a few takes, and
Okay.
So what was that process like for you? Natalie, we'll start with you actually, in terms of syncing up your performance and finding this character in a performance that's already been established by someone else. Yeah.
Well, like any role, I generally will just read a script and kind of think of, try things out how I think she might be. And then we were sent episodes, like very rough cuts, and I first saw Deet, and that really informed and changed some of the ideas that I had. But it was very much a collaborative process with Louis, but especially with Becky, who played Deet, who did such an incredible job. She gave her so much life, and so much of her personality really shone through in the performance, and that really informed my performance and too. So it was amazing, really, to have collaborated on a character with somebody you've never met. And I'm coming to find you later, by the way. I'm so excited to meet you. So for me, it just kind of, it was partly just using my own imagination and thinking about who I think Deep might be, also learning from Becky's performance, and then Louis had great ideas, and we played and created this cute little gelfling.
Can I interject something? The puppeteers are so versatile. I mean, we had 12 principal puppeteers, and they did all the characters. So each of them did several major characters. Most also did a Skeksis in addition to multiple Gelfling, and Becky actually is the performer for both of their roles. Yes.
Amazing. So Hannah, presumably you'll be finding Becky afterwards as well?
Yes. Be the high and I moment.
Lisa, actually, let's go back to you on that. Why not puppets? Which was what Cindy said right at the beginning. This is the challenge you were setting to yourself with this show, to do it with puppets.
It's not that I don't like puppets. Yeah. we were developing a sequel film with puppets, and Louis was attached to the sequel film, and Hallie and I were separately developing an animated television show of this storyline, basically. And after speaking with Netflix, we combined all the teams from both, essentially, and I think the only reason possibly to hesitate on the TV series was really the scope and cost of it.
Yes.
I didn't know if Netflix was going to spring for that.
No one. I mean, we didn't think that anyone would accept to do. This is. You have to understand. This is the most complicated way of doing anything. It's like, it is so complex. It takes so many people. Not only puppeteers, the voice actors, everything. Here the handlers. We have all the people that put the puppets together, took care of it, wash them at night.
Yes, wranglers.
They're amazing because it's great, but it breaks. It has to be fixed. It has to be dressed. It smells a little bit at the end of the day. There's a lot of stuff that needs to. So really it takes a lot of people. So it's the most complex way of doing it. So we had to find a partner that was incredibly visionary and follow us in this adventure. And there was only one place to go.
It's true. I'm just gonna. May I answer too? It is true. Why not puppets? It's because we didn't have Cindy Holland and Ted Biaselli before when we were developing the animated series, and they had such vision. And Cindy already said it, that they came to us and said, "Well, what about puppets?"
Yeah.
And Lisa and our heads exploded. We were like, "What? Amazing!" So really, truly.
So, Hanna, can you actually talk us through the scale of this production? Because it seems huge. The sets alone are massive. I mean, how many sets? How many characters are you dealing with? How many puppets?
How many sets? So many. You know, the
It's
scale.
75.
Yeah, I'll tell you the scale. Best way to understand the scale of it is, do you remember that moment when Deed at the end is at the top of the sanctuary tree and she's looking out at the entire world of Thra for the first time?
Uh-huh.
That's what it was like for me the first day I stepped on the set of The Dark Crystal. It's massive. You were in Thra. The sets were magnificent. The production design, the art department, everything brought the world of Thra to life. It was unbelievable.
These people right here.
They are.
It's all about the small.
Art department.
It's the big things. You have to understand. Nothing can. There's no straight line. Everything has to be hand sculpted, handcrafted. You cannot go to a prop shop and buy anything. A spoon cannot be. A real spoon is too big or too small, too heavy for a puppet to carry. So you have to build everything for puppets and adapt and change. And it's massive. You'll see. That's one episode, and you have 10 after 9 more hours to go.
Yeah. So, and can you talk about the scale of the sets, Louis, and what you wanted to do as a director? There's that incredible shot in the library when you're establishing Brea initially, and the camera's just swooping through this set that I imagine was the size of Wembley Stadium. What was
It's
it?
actually. I mean, it's you have to. I mean, a puppet. A gelfling is this. That's the head. It's all about the size of a hand. So you have to put your hand inside the mouth, and that's it. So the set was built. A set was built. But then we needed an extension. We shot in beautiful Slough. I don't know if you're aware.
There's a song about it.
In an industrial warehouse. Beautiful. But so we built half a set, and then we there was some design that Kevin Bouquet, our production designer, had created with his team, and I wanted to see the whole design, and so I was like, okay, well maybe we can do this, and with Eric Wilson, our amazing DP, we just imagined this shot where you basically do a digital takeover, but most of the set is built. You do a digital takeover and you still see a puppet at the end. So there's never a moment when you're full CG. There's always something happening that's real. And then you come back around, changing your crane position, and then eventually you find your little Brea at the end. But you see the scale of their world. You see how grandiose it is. You see how she gets lost. And also, it was for the audience. I was like, welcome to the world of. I wanted for the audience to want to live on Thra. Well, you want to live in Harar, and that was the idea of these big sweeping shots, and you have many on this in this show.
And also, the technology must have progressed in the years since the first movie to allow things like that, to allow large tracking shots. And is that something that you were keen to progress?
Yes. We could have done everything with so much digital, so many digital effects and so much digital magicry. But my idea from the beginning was, if we can do it for real, let's do it for real. So we tried. I pushed people to keep it as real as possible, and sometimes remove some rods, sometimes remove some puppeteers, because there's some characters that you'll see later in the seasons where you have to puppeteer from the outside of the puppet, not the inside. So this is technology that help us create a world that's much wider than the original movie. But the idea was, I always looked at Jim's movie and our show and compared both. And if they matched, I was happy. If they didn't, throw the shot away. No, but really, it was like, if it was not puppet centric, it was not working for me.
Amazing. And Shazad, did you go back to the film at all in terms of inspiration? Did you revisit it?
Not in the. I just I remember watching it right at the start last year at some point, and they gave us the first 4 reps. But then because it's a prequel, you sort of and then my character's very new. I just want to create from that sort of original spot, really.
Like the flute, he was like looking at all the flute.
You're just 6 months learning to play the flute.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. I imagine, Lisa, it must have been important for you as well to film here in the UK.
It was very important. The first film was done here at Elstree, and we really wanted to build beautiful sets for this. At one point, we were weighing how much would we be relying on CG backgrounds versus the sets, and once we committed to doing sets and really building them, then it kind of dictated that we come back to England, where the craft is so strong still for set building, thanks to Harry Potter and the Star Wars movies. And there's a craft here that is being forgotten in many other places in the world. And you can see in the cave sets, for instance, to build the interior of a convincing cave is pretty hard. But here in England, people know how to do that. Look, they're nodding. Yeah, it's hard.
Piece of cake.
In addition, those were one of our two reasons. Our other big reason to be here is there's an excellent bench of puppeteers here. And we only brought 3 puppeteers from America, which is very little on a show of this scope. So most of our key cast is all English puppeteers, and then of course every other puppeteer in England also worked on the show at some point. Virtually nobody was left out.
Hallie, what was the biggest challenge of mounting this show for you?
There's so many challenges on this show. I'm thinking that one of the biggest challenges for me personally was just making sure that we had a very strong fantasy world, that we were telling the story and creating rules. We had to create new rules too within the mythology. I think that was the most challenging thing for us, that Lisa and I had what we called the Great Creative Conjunction. We came together
years ago.
Abba Brian Froud was there, and so many people, and Ted Biaselli, and we just had to kind of sort of think about the rules of magic. Remember, there were 2 Gelfling in the original movie. We had a whole clans of Gelfling, and they had their own cultures within the Gelfling. So I think that was the biggest challenge, is just creating the new world mythology.
And how deep did you go with that mythology? Did you have a Bible to work from?
We went so deep.
Well, we actually, after that big brainstorming, we actually published our new franchise material online. We went public with it right away. I don't know what we were thinking.
You can go read it online right now.
We put it on a website that was darkcrystal.com, and then we sponsored a writing contest for the YA books and invited basically all the fans to read the new mythology and to start submitting fiction writing sample chapters, and selected a very new young writer named Joe Lee to write new books.
Yes.
And he's great.
Starring Kylan and Naya.
So, yes, that is part of the connection, is that Hanna and Shahzad's characters are the leads of the YA books. So, they, even though you haven't seen them yet, they're fan favorites already.
But just to jump to, because I wanted to say this one geeky moment, just how deep we would go, that we actually reached way, but we dream fasted back with the movie, and that Wall of Destiny, we looked at that Wall of Destiny, and there we saw in it an image of a female Gelfling who had a crown on, and we were like, what? Maybe we should make this a matriarchy. Maybe the Gelfling should be ruled by women. So that is how deep we went, that we studied the ancient tablets.
That's amazing. And Hanna and Shahzad, were you inundated with this material, with the YA novels? And did you did you read that stuff?
Like a pack, like a starter pack. With loads of
Was it a big pack or was it a big pack?
It was enough.
Enough to be getting on with. Fantastic. So if you've any questions now, we've got time for, I think, a couple of questions from the audience. There's a hand went up right away. Yes, sir.
I thought that the connection between the movie and this is pretty seamless. So I wonder, and so much of that came from, obviously, the mind of Brian Froud.
Absolutely.
Could you talk about how closely you worked with the Frouds to realise?
Oh, so closely. They're everywhere, and it's multi-generational. So many Frouds on this project. No, I mean, obviously, we couldn't do this project without Brian, Wendy, and little Toby Froud, who's not so little anymore. Toby Froud, you remember, is the baby in Labyrinth, and now he's a wonderful everything. I mean, he's so good that at one point I was like, Toby, would you please, could you direct a little sequence for me? And he did, and you'll see it's incredible. Please, you'll guess in the series which series he directed. Which sequence he directed. It's absolutely amazing. So very, very early on, Brian, Wendy, Toby came on board. We were writing the scripts. We exchanged design ideas. We were very inspired from the world of Dark Crystal, Brian's book, and literally went through every page, looked at little creatures that he drew, little doodles. And I was like, let's make a story out of this one, and so we have to work backwards, and then we sort of like had this constant exchange. Then it came time to build the puppets, to build the world. Brian was like, and Wendy were the masters, the gods that we came to see. Like, please tell us. And working really hard, doing designs, drawing, putting what they call fraud water, which is basically disgusting little water that just makes everything look amazing. and from the production designers to the screenwriters, myself, the puppeteers, everybody had access to Brian, Wendy, and Toby, and their DNA, it's obvious, it's everywhere, and and we're so thankful. I am, and I think everybody in the theater is thankful that you are who you are. Thank you, Brian, Wendy.
Just to follow up on that, in terms of connecting the dots between the show and the film, and establishing a time period for this and how far in advance of the film it would be set, what sort of conversations did you have as a creative unit about that?
Well, we're keeping it a little vague.
Right, there's some spoilers.
Yeah, no, we're keeping it a little vague how far in advance of the film it is. The Skeksis are almost immortal, and Agra is immortal, and the Gelfling have short lives like humans do, and so we don't know where on the timeline this is exactly.
Okay.
But if you remember the opening shot of the movie, the world is quite darkened. And when we see Arthra and the castle here, it's green and lush. So
Yes. Okay. Intriguing.
that's all I'll say.
I think we have time for one more question from the audience, so maybe I'll come to you as well. But yes, please, sir. Thank you.
Dark Crystal has a really, really big fandom. We are here, so many of the fan club of Dark Crystal, and we wanted to ask.
I know them. I'm fans of them. When we were shooting a movie, I was reading the Dark Crystal, the Crystal Shard, their Facebook group. I was like, oh, I hope they like it. So please.
I want to go to how did the fans? Did you take any tips or anything from the fans?
What do you think? Everything.
Except for that guy who wants to play Ronip. You guys know.
I don't know this. There's a guy who plays Ronip.
He wants to play Ronip.
Let's hire him. He's great.
There's a I can't remember his name, but he's posted about it heavily on YouTube.
Every single person that worked on this production is an Uber fan. And that's what you should know. That's how much we take the fans seriously, because we are those fans. So I want you to know that.
That's exactly true. Yeah.
Because Louis, you stayed attached to this for about 10 years. Isn't that right?
9 years. Yeah, absolutely. Once you start, once you start on the Dark Crystal, you never want to leave. It's like, I was like, and I was keep making other movies and calling them, and while I was actually making other movies in South Africa, taking meetings about scripts, remember? So, it's like, really, it's a dream of a lifetime, and it's what we were all together. Because really, yes, my name's at the end, but it's only. This is a project that it absolutely takes everyone, it takes the whole crew to create a shot and make a moment of truth, from pre-production to ultimately post-production with you guys. It took everybody to bring this moment to life. I was bitten by the Dark Crystal when I was young, and now I'm like, I'm on it forever, hopefully. Am I?
I said we had time for two, but someone put their hand up over here real quick, so let's go to you, please, sir.
Really quick question. It's been sort of around 40 years huge production cast and excellent and well received and fantastic tonight. Will it be another 40 years or are there other ideas?
No, no, but I'll tell you, well, I don't want to speak, I'm the only one to speak tonight, but it's so special to us, to all of us, and to you, and to Netflix, that we took it one step at a time. We're like, we're lucky enough to have Cindy, Teddy, everybody at Netflix trust us and give us this opportunity that we're like, let's just end it at 10, cross our fingers, present it to the world, and you tell us, you decide. Really, you will be the deciding factor if we wait another 40 years. So. 28 days.
Well, we do have 9 episodes left to see, and we're about to see them now, I believe. No, without giving too much away, obviously, Hannah, what can you say about Naya and where she may go?
Well, you meet her in the next one, and she does join in with fun with the fellow gelflings. No, you'll see she joins in, and she's a fighter. Okay. She's a warrior.
Yeah. Tiptoeing around spoilers is fun, isn't it? It's
amazing, I love it.
Shazad, what about you and Kyle?
I'm going to be running through some forests. I make some broth.
Oh yeah.
And I play the flute as well.
Some hot broth action coming up for you guys.
Singing.
Natalie?
Well, as you saw, Deet has never been above ground before, so she's now discovering the world above, her grotton caves, and she is kind of shocked and often sort of surprised at how unkind the world is. She thinks everything is lovely and everyone is nice, and this new weird creature she's looking at is friendly, but it's not always the case, and so she's quite naive, and she's on her journey of discovery of who she is, and she kind of doesn't realise how much of a hero she is. So, and she has that really fun kind of arc in the story, and it's a very much like a coming of age for her, definitely.
And just for the three of you as well, obviously you've got this incredible fantasy sci-fi background, Hannah with Ready Player One and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Shazad with Star Trek Discovery, and Natalie, I think you were on a show called Game of Thrones, is that right? And are you drawn to fantasy?
Apparently.
Yeah,
apparently. It just keeps coming
just
back.
Coincidence?
Podcast.
I love it. I mean, fantasy has always been something I just have been drawn to since a kid, and I think that no matter what costume you're in, what spaceship you're on, the politics are always the same, and that doesn't change. So whatever story you're telling, it's always so, it doesn't matter what, because it's the truth. And if I get to have a space gun or a ghost costume, or I get to see it through the eyes of an incredible puppet and be in this world, then yeah, I'll take that every time.
Yeah, I think the genre itself has, it lends to, it gives permission for us to talk about subjects that might be more difficult, because people are further removed from the reality of those issues, and so there's actually a lot more space to talk about things, and you'll see a lot of that within Dark Crystal. There's so many subjects that we all deal with in life, and politically and socially and all of those things.
So sad.
but it's a really fun way to talk about these things, and with this beautiful artistry, this beautiful world that we've created, and it makes it more digestible and more fun to talk about. Anyway, it did for me doing it.
And then just for Hanna and Lisa and Louis, what can you tell us about the last 9 episodes? Without giving too much away, obviously, Lisa.
You're like the horrible.
Just go right to the end.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Please.
It's twice as beautiful as this, because this is 2K. We shot in 4K HDR Dolby. It's like incredible. I mean, you guys, this was beautiful. Just imagine what's going to look like on beautiful new TVs that we're going to buy just for this. It is. The scope is incredible. The stories, with all the majesty of everything that you saw tonight. It really ultimately it's about just great stories, and we also people that we should acknowledge is our screenwriters, our team of screenwriters. Just it's true. They are the ones who were able to crack this, crystal, and find a way to tell a story that both pleases the fans, I think, doesn't sort of like take you by the hand a bit too much, and then welcomes a whole new generation of people that have absolutely never seen the Dark Crystal and possibly never seen a puppet show or something like this. So that is what to expect. Is a great adventure, new characters, amazing fights from our dear friend Naya. I mean, she is pretty cool. Now you see some flute playing, a lot of flute playing.
Yeah, I don't want to give the story away, but I think what everyone can expect is that this is an epic tale that families can come together and sit and watch, and I think that's going to be very exciting, a different kind of programming. And also, I love what Natalie just said about fantasy and truth. I think it'll start a lot of conversations with families about speaking up against when you see someone doing something wrong, and authority, of healing Mother Earth, of even when you're little in the world, that you can have a big, powerful difference. So I think that people can expect some pretty good conversation starters.
Do you like the music?
Yes.
Daniel Pemberton, yeah! Daniel, woo! I mean, he had such a huge challenge because he had to, getting... And Sam, ready to go! And Sam, both of these guys are incredible. I mean, their challenge was, massive, and I think you'll see. That's also something to expect in the next 9 hours. It's how many hours of music did you write? 7? 8. There you go.
Amazing. And Hallie, absolutely, those themes you talked about are they seem particularly relevant today. Were those themes that were on your mind as you were beginning to make the show, or did they come into focus as you get closer and closer to the release?
They were on our mind for a very long time. I just think the universe conspired to let this come out right now. And I was thinking as I was watching it right now, wow, we have our Gen Z in this world that are going to go out there and make a difference, but throughout has its Gen G. And so we get to watch these young people actually go out and make a difference. And I hope that'll be very hope punk and get a lot of kids inspired.
Fantastic. And Lisa, the original movie, a young Louis Leterrier, aged just 8 years old, watched it and went out and started making movies with puppets, and here he is today. Is your hope that this show will inspire children similarly?
I think I hope it makes people really want to start making things. We didn't mention that Netflix also commissioned a feature-length documentary about the making of the series, which is dropping the same day. So, for people to be able to watch the documentary and see the levels of craftsmanship and all the artistry, and whether people sewed those costumes or put hairs into the characters, or just every layer of all the artwork and all the artists that worked on the series. I hope people will see that documentary and realize even if they don't make a movie, they might follow any number of these other artistic pursuits.
Amazing. And if there is, absolutely, if there is a second season or a film, this is for the cast, would you hope to get to visit the sets this time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was actually really sad because I was invited to come and I was somewhere else, annoyingly. But yeah, no, I was very excited. I would be very excited to visit a set.
Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic. That's just how you bring your flute.
I bring the flute, yeah.
Give us all a tune. Fantastic. On that note, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Hanna John Hammond. Thank you so much. Thank you.